leaning Twitter feeds or the activist wing of our party. Even as we push the envelope and we are bold in our vision, we have to be rooted in reality. The average American doesn't think we have to completely tear down the system and remake it. 70+% of people, again, think the economy is rigged. So, again, maybe that was the case during the Obama years. Maybe people were relatively fine, I would say, asleep during the Obama years, especially liberals. They were completely asleep and just not really familiar with what was happening. But, and a lot of people in the country just got more discontent with the situation, pushing, and that's eventually was what gave us Trump. But that discontent is growing, and I think it's a very foolish thing to ignore. The idea is, even as we push the envelope and we are bold in our vision, like this is not like what about anything you're saying is bold here? Like, are you trying to tell me that the means tested tax credits that people, like, probably at this point Obama's ideological compatriots such as like Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg and Elizabeth, like more and more Elizabeth Warren are pushing, like that kind of stuff? I find it incredibly hard to believe that anyone can in the right mind consider that bold, especially in America and out there in the public. That's like anything that takes, I think, more than like a paragraph to fully explain, you're going to have a hard time calling that bold. Like, that is incredibly hard to convince me of. Like, to me, bold means challenging the status quo significantly, like taking like a big step away from where we are and doing it in a way that's easy to explain. And more often than not, I mean, I guess you could have a complex, like the Green New Deal is bold, but it's complex. But something that is not bold is anything that Kamala Harris, like, for example, Kamala Harris's debt forgiveness plan, Amy Klobuchar's health plan, Elizabeth Warren's health plan. Like, that's just not, like, I'm sorry here. Like, you gotta pick an idea. Like, do you want to be bold? That's fine. You can be bold. Maybe you just don't want to be bold and keep things relatively the same. That's also fine to you, because as you like to say, Americans don't want to tear everything down and burn everything up. The comments marked an extraordinary interest into the primary contest by the former president. So even as that's what Obama had to say, and I think that's very interesting about his view and his legacy and the way that he views himself. And I do want to get into this piece here. Pity the sad legacy of Barack H. Obama. This is by the legendary Cornel West. And do you want to get into what he had to say here about this? This is January 9th, 2017. This is a little old, but it is very, very relevant to what we see. Here he says, 8 years ago, the world was on the brink of a grand celebration, the inauguration of a brilliant and charismatic black president of the United States of America. Today, we are on the edge of an abyss, the installation of a mendacious and cathartic white president who will replace him. This is a depressing decline in the highest office of the most powerful empire in the history of the world. It could easily produce a pervasive cynicism and poisonous nihilism. Is there any hope for truth and justice in this decadent time? Again, this is just as Barack Obama was leaving and Trump was coming in 2 years ago. Almost 3 now. Is there any hope for truth and justice in decadent time? Does America even have the capacity to be honest about itself and come to terms with its self-destructive addiction to money, worship, and cowardly xenophobia? Ralph Waldo Emerson and Herman Melville, the two great public intellectuals of 19th century America, wrestled with similar questions and reached the same conclusion as Heraclitus. Character is destiny, sow a character, and you shall reap a destiny. The age of Barack Obama may have been our last chance to break from our neoliberal soulcraft. We are rooted in market-driven barons that shun integrity and profit-driven policies that trump public goods. Our post-integrity, post-truth world is suffocated by entertaining brands and money-making activities that have nothing or little to do with the truth, integrity, or the long-term survival of the planet. We are witnessing the postmodern version of the full-scale gangsterization of the world. The reign of Obama did not produce the nightmare of Trump, but it did contribute to it. And those Obama cheerleaders who refused to make him accountable bear some responsibility. A few of us begged and pleaded with Obama to break with Wall Street priorities and bail out Main Street, but he followed the advice of his smart neoliberal advisors to bail out Wall Street, many of them who came directly from Wall Street. In March 2009, Obama met with Wall Street leaders. He proclaimed, quote, "I stand between you and the pitchforks." Wow. "I am on your side and I will protect you," he promised them. And not one Wall Street criminal went to jail. It's hard to believe that he said that after running such an incredible campaign, and so a campaign based on change, a campaign based on, granted, an incredibly vague and unclear way, but he really did give the impression that he was going to change the system, and that's why so many people did feel motivated to support him. But this is something just completely crazy on its face. Like, that quote to me is just especially striking. That is something that he thought was appropriate, like, and a thing to say. I stand between you and the pitchforks. Like, I'm on your side. That's mind-blowing to me that he said that. I didn't know he said that. Damn. We call for accountability of U.S. tortures of innocent Muslims and the transparency of U.S. drone strikes killing innocent civilians. Obama's administration told us no civilians have been killed. And then we were told a few had been killed. And then maybe 65 or so had been killed. Yet when American civilian Warren Weinstein was killed in 2015, there was an immediate press conference with deep apologies and financial compensation. And today, we still don't know how many lives have been taken away. We hit the streets again with Black Lives Matter and other groups and went to jail for protesting against police killing black youth. We protested when the IDF killed more than 2,000 Palestinians, including 550 children in 50 days. Yet Obama replied with words about the difficult plight of police officers, department investigations, with no police going to jail, and the additional $225 million in financial support of the Israeli army. Obama said a mumbling word about the dead Palestinian children and did not call, but he did call, black youth of Baltimore criminals and thugs. Again, there's things to look at here. In addition, Obama's education policy unleashed more market forces that closed hundreds of public schools for charter ones. The top 1% got nearly 2/3 of income growth in 8 years, even as child poverty, especially black child poverty, remained astronomical. Labor insurgencies in Wisconsin, Seattle, and Chicago, vigorously opposed by Mayor Rahm Emanuel, a close confidant in Obama's first chief of staff, were passed over in silence. In 2009, Obama called New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg an outstanding mayor. Yet he overlooked the fact that more than 4 million people were stopped and frisked under Bloomberg's watch as now he tries to run for president. And apologize for that. Along with Carl Dix and others, this is from Cornell West, obviously, sat in jail 2 years later for protesting these very same policies that Obama ignored when praising Bloomberg. Yet the same media and academia failed to highlight these painful truths linked to Obama. Yet most well-paid pundits on TV and radio celebrated the Obama brand, and most black spokespeople shamelessly defended Obama's silences and crimes in the name of racial symbolism and their own careerism. How hypocritical to see them now speak truth to white power when most went mute in the face of black power. Their moral authority is weak and their newfound militancy is shallow. The gross killing of U.S. citizens with no due process and direct orders from Obama was cast aside by neoliberal supporters of all colors. And Edward Snowden, Chelsea Manning, and Jeffrey Epstein and other truth-tellers were just demonized, just as the crimes they exposed were hardly mentioned. The president's greatest legislative achievement was to provide health care for over 25 million citizens, even as another 20 million are still uncovered. But it remained a market-based policy created by the Conservative Heritage Foundation and first pioneered by Mitt Romney, his Republican running mate in 2012 in Massachusetts. Obama's lack of courage to confront Wall Street criminals and his lapse of character in ordering drone strikes unintentionally led to right-wing populist revolts at home and ugly Islamic fascistic rebellions in the Middle East. And as deporter-in-chief, nearly 2.5 million immigrants were deported under his watch. Obama policies prefigure Trump's barbaric plans. Bernie Sanders gallantly tried to generate a left-wing populism, but he was crushed by Clinton and Obama in the unfair Democratic Party primaries of 2016. So now we find ourselves entering a neo-fascistic era, a neoliberal economy on steroids, and a reactionary, oppressive attitude toward domestic aliens. A militaristic cabinet eager for war and in denial of global warming. All the while, we're seeing a whole-scale eclipse of truth and integrity in the name of the Trump brand, facilitated by the profit-hungry corporate media. What a sad legacy for our hope and change candidate, even as we warriors go down swinging in the fading names of truth and justice. That's Cornel West. Pity the sad legacy of Barack Obama. An incredible, perfect way. I think really... I mean, it's not highlighting the positives, but I think it's a reality check for people who consider Obama as this kind of hero in this way. This interesting look at the way things were, and people, they're probably getting a lot of heat in the Democratic primary for criticizing Barack Obama. But again, I think there's right ways to do it politically, and there's wrong ways to do it politically. I think Bernie Sanders has probably come the closest to doing that so far, and I think right now we are in a state that is post-Obama. We're moving rapidly into a state that's post-Obama. He's from a different time, I think, even though it was just almost 4 years ago that he left office. 3 years ago, I think, really closer to that. But like we're seeing just a different political world. It feels like there was a veil put up after Trump came into office, and everything that happened in Obama seems so far long ago, and it just kind of got transfigured in some weird way. But we're in an era where what Obama did in what Obama says, I feel like is less and less relevant because there is a new brand of change, and there is a new brand of inspiration and populism and really raging at the machine in the system coming to American politics at long last. And starting with Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who are reacting to some of these comments that President Barack Obama made to, quote, liberal, wealthy, unquote, party donors late last week that some Democrats were going too far left. AOC responded by saying progressives are not pushing in some new radical direction, but rather trying to bring the party back where it came from, which is a great, I think, a really prescient way of putting it. This is what she had to say in a new campaign ad for Bernie Sanders that she tweeted with the, pretty fair caption. I want to be the party of the Green New Deal again, the party of the Civil Rights Act, the one that electrified this nation and fights for all people. For that, many would call us radical, but we aren't pushing the party left or bringing the party home.
In politics, there's a real like almost observational culture around it. We're gonna watch the polls. Mm-hmm. We're gonna see who's surging. I'm not here to watch a poll. I'm here to change the polls.
When people try to accuse us of going too far left, we're not pushing the party left. We are bringing the party home.
The way that we change those polls is by knocking on doors. It's by doing that hard work of reaching out and talking to our neighbor. That's how we transform everything down the ballot all the way to the very top.
That was so nice to meet you.
You're rocking it, girl.
Oh, thank you so much, Ms.
Don't let
Antrim.
the bullies get you.
Thank you. I so appreciate that. Thank you so much. We're just knocking doors here today for Senator Sanders, just canvassing the neighborhood.
As Alexandria said, whether you live in the Bronx, whether you live in Vermont, we are in this together, and that we become more human when my family cares about your family and when your family cares about my family.
This is about what is going to happen in our lifetimes. This is about a people's movement for the United States. And this campaign is a part of that. And electing Bernie Sanders is the beginning of a transformational movement in the direction of working people in America.
And who are you leaning towards?
Bernie.
You're leaning towards Bernie. And why is that?
None of these candidates would be there without Bernie.
And the positions, too.
Yeah.
Medicare for all.
I mean, they're all, climate. Well, who do you think started this?
Unlike Trump and his friends who believe that greed and corruption is what life is about, we believe in love and compassion and bringing people together around those values.